So please make Tyson Lee welcome this morning. We got a picture of him. Hold up, I got to get that picture up. And I didn't go over our agenda. But there he is in the old playing days right there.
I used to wear tall cleats that I wear. I would be 5'11". So today, if you measure me, I might only be 5'10", but it's all good. Scotty, thank you so much. It's always a joy to be here. What I'm going to talk about today is really right in line with what he was saying. I've always been a competitor. I still am a competitor. Now I just compete for different things that I'm passionate about, my wife, my family, but we'll get into that in a second. But before we start, on the way up here, I've got a friend of mine that's 90, he'll be 90 years old in July. And he lives in West Point. And on my way up here, I was just, I had about an hour and a half drive. And so I just got the phone and called him. I've got to where now I try to see him once a week. He's full of wisdom. He's lived a long life. And last week I hung out with him for about 4 hours. And I called him on the way down here to ask him one question. I said, who's been the most influential person in your life? And he said, I was in bed last night and just thinking about him. And he said, my dad. And I asked him why, and he began to tell me why. And so to continue on with it being informal, who's been the most influential person in your life? Maybe one or two people. Just tell me who it is, who it was, and why. Any takers?
I'd have to concur with this gentleman, not knowing him, but my father, for me, is far and away been the most influential person. He's, just showed me what it looks like to love. Love my mother. Be a strong husband. Loving and caring father and integrity, what it is to walk in integrity. So, and he's someone that blessed to have a close friendship with even today.
That's so good. And really the second question is more just for you to think about who's been the most influential person in your life. And then secondly, who are you the most influential to? Because there's somebody. It might be a spouse. I got a little boy now. It might be a family member. It might be a coworker. But maybe it's nobody because you don't think of your life as being an influence. But here's the reality. If I'm here, which we are, our lives are influencing somebody. And so maybe you've been influenced by somebody, but guess what? You are influencing somebody here, at home, or wherever it is that you go. And so my prayer today is that as we talk about three things that are going to kind of fall right in line with your job, what you do, but also in athletics, also in competition, but to be reminded that your life is influencing somebody. You don't know who's watching you, but somebody's watching. If you got a little child, they're watching. You might have somebody else, but they're watching what you do. And so because of that, that should motivate us, encourage us, and challenge us to want to live a life of integrity, as Scotty said. But the three things I was going to talk about today are focus, fight, and finish. Three easy words. If you play sports, you've heard them over and over again. If you work in a market where there's always competition, you've got to stay focused, you've got to fight, you've got to finish. But three short words. I won't be here long, but I want us to apply them in our lives. I want us to apply them in our jobs, but I want us to apply them personally. What does this look like in my life? And I'll read a verse, 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. And the first one is focus. Like, what is your focus in life? Do you have a focus in life? Maybe that's a great question to ask, because many times when I'm talking to older men, older women, young women, Scotty said it best, they're kind of aimlessly walking through life. They wake up, it's May the 8th, it's a Friday, I just work. Go home, hang out for the weekend, come back to work on Monday, but there's not much of a focus, and this is what happens. When we don't have a focus, we don't have anything to fight for. We just aimlessly walk through life, we just go through the motions. Another day goes by, and once that day goes by, we get ready for the next. And before you know it, weeks, months, years have passed. And in a sense, you've wasted a lot of time because you weren't focused. And now the Lord is leading me in a direction that I was so wide focused that I wasn't able to do as much as I wanted to. So now I'm trying to begin to narrow that focus so that the depth of my relationships, the depth of what I do, has exponential growth in years to come. And in your job now, in your lives now, if you have a focus, if you know what your focus is, well, guess what? When you leave this company, when you move on in life, there's people behind you that you've influenced. There's people behind you that you've touched. And guess what? Wherever they go, throughout the state, throughout the country, they have your fingerprints on their life. But once again, if you're not focused and you don't have a focus, well, maybe you don't have fingerprints on anybody's life. And I think it's hard sometimes for us to stay focused because we kind of get distracted. We all do. work, family, problems, situations, mistakes, failures. You name it, we all get kind of slapped in the face and we just kind of fall off course. But guess what? When I know where I'm going, I can fall off course, but I know how to get back on course. But guess what? If I don't know where I'm going and I get knocked off course, I'm going to go in a different direction because I don't know where I was originally headed. But if we can forget the mistakes, forget the failures, learn from them, but don't allow them to hold you, don't allow them to keep you in bondage so that you can continue to move on in your life. When I was playing at Mississippi State, Coach Mullen, let me just say this about Bill Buckley, who's my boss. I love the man. One of the best leaders I've ever been around, one man that's influenced my life in a lot of ways. So Tyson Lee has the fingerprints of Bill Buckley and Coach Mullen. One of the biggest things that Coach Mullen said when I played for him and still says now, being a champion isn't a sometimes thing. It's a way of life. Listen, being a champion isn't me speaking for 15 minutes to you. For me to be a champion is when I go back home tomorrow with my family, I live my life the same way tomorrow as I do today. When I'm talking to Scotty and Wade and Daniel, when I'm talking to these guys about my life, I don't try to put on a front in front of them. Then when I leave here, I live life a different way. I want to be the same in front of them as I am in front of you. I want to be the same in front of you as I am in front of my wife. That's a hard thing to do, but because I'm focused and because I'm committed to that, that's something I'm always working for. That's something I'm always trying to get better at in my own life. And Coach Mullen said, I thought, being a champion is not a sometimes thing. It's a way of life. And when I began to see that being a champion is more off the field than it is on the field, the lens through which I saw life began to change. And I think it'd be the same for you if you saw your life 7 days a week as more important than just 5 days a week, but you saw everything that you did, it had a purpose. And Scotty said it best, living a purposeful life. And my greatest passion in life is knowing Jesus, but for other people to know that they do have a purpose in life. A purpose bigger than a paycheck, a purpose bigger than a job, but a purpose that brings glory to the Lord. But in this idea of focus, so many times I think when we talk about focus, it's really easy just to think about me. Well, I'm going to be focused. I'm going to reach my benchmark. I'm going to achieve my goals. Part of that's okay because there are things that you have to do, but guess what? What a real leader does, he is an influencer, but a real leader, whether it be a man or a woman, they think of others. True. They know that, hey, I'm not here today without other people in my life. If it wasn't for somebody that could care for me when I was young, if it wasn't for people that could speak into my life, guess what? I wouldn't be the father and the husband that I am today. And wherever you are in life, if you work for one life or you work for another company, guess what? You didn't make it on your own. You might have hard work. You might be diligent. Your work ethic might be better than everybody else's, but don't be fooled into thinking that you made it just on that. There were people that pushed you, encouraged you, challenged you along the way to get you to where you are now. And many times when we get focused, we get so focused and so narrow-minded that we forget that other people have played a part in our life. And when we begin to do that, guess what? We begin to demean others to elevate ourselves. And when we do that, we're asking for ourselves to fall on our face. But if you and I, if we realize, man, I'm not here without other people, your life begins to be more purposeful because when you're gone, you still impacted people along the way. So the first thing is just, are you focused? Do you have a focus in life? And I'm not even talking about in one life. I'm talking about at home as a man, as a woman, as a mom, a dad, a grandparent, a son, a single man, a married. Like, do you have a focus in life? Is it bigger than you? Because if it is, guess what? It'll be fulfilling. It'll be purposeful. And if it's for the glory of Christ, it'll be well meant and well lived. And the second point, that's just being focused, is fight. I wrote down a simple definition. It's to labor earnestly, strive, contend for the prize, or devote serious effort or energy. So what do you fight for? And I'm not talking about necessarily physically fighting, but intrinsically within, what is it that you fight for? You know, when I played ball, I fought for my teammates, fought for our university, fought for our coaches, for their families. But then when I got done playing ball, I mean, I'm a competitor, right? So now I want to fight for things, but I want to fight for things that really matter. And so now what do I fight for? I fight for the things that matter to Christ, the things that matter to Him, the things that He says are worthy, the things that He says are holy. And not only that, I fight for a family. On my iPad, I've got a picture of my son, Zeke. Growing up, my dad wasn't a big part of my life, and by God's grace, we're beginning to mend that relationship. But I've got a little boy, and I fight for him. I fight for the other kids in my community that they don't have fathers at home. They don't have mothers at home. They might have one or the other, but it's not a godly home where they can be raised up to be men and women of God. And so what do I fight for? I fight for those. I fight for my marriage. I fight for thoughts towards women because I love my wife and we've become one. And those are things in my life that because I'm focused, guess what? I fight, but I fight in a particular direction. Because I said earlier, if you're not focused, guess what? You don't have anything to fight for. But for me, because I love the Lord and because I love my family and because I love the people in my city and I love the youth and I love the people that I'm around, guess what? I fight for things that matter for them. But if the focus is on me, guess what? I never see the needs of other people. I'm all about, hey, where can Tyson go? If I did that for 80, 90 years of my life, some people say that would be a life well lived. But what happens when I'm gone and I haven't really elevated others in life? I didn't really leave much behind. And so for you and for me, that we would just fight for the things that really matter. That when you go home this weekend, you would fight for your families. You would fight for this company. That you would be diligent with your time. You would be diligent with your energy. That when the day is done, whatever time it is, sometime late nights, according to Scott, when it's done, you put your head on the pillow and say, you know what? I gave it everything I had today. And when we can do that each day, which we all fall short, but when we can do that, when a week is done, when a month is done, when years go by, we don't look back and say, what if? We look back and say, you know what? I gave it everything that I had. So being focused and fighting. Then the last one, if you played a sport, you know, Coach said it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That can be a week, it can be a day. In sports, it's more the quarters and the seasons. But many of you in here, you've had mistakes in life, you've had mistakes in your job, just like me, and if you're not careful, you'll allow those mistakes and mess-ups and failures to characterize your life. But guess what? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. So today's Friday, May 8th, 10:30. You got hours. How will you finish today? And I have an acronym for finish, and I'll close with this. But I just want to, so what does it mean to really finish? You know, fix your eyes. You know, for me, when I played sports, you think I like two-a-days? Daniel can tell you. You like two-a-days, Daniel? No. Terrible. But guess what? I fixed my eyes on the end of the day, or I fixed my eyes on what it was going to produce. And so I knew I didn't want to work out. I didn't want to get up at 4 in the morning to work out. I didn't want to do a two-a-day. But I knew if I did those things, by the end of the day, by the end of the week, by the end of the season, the results that were produced, I was going to be okay with that. And in your job, sometimes you can't fix your eyes on the day-to-day. You've got to say, okay, I know where I want to go. I'm focused. And I want to fix my eyes on the end result. And because I know that one day I'll get there, it makes these tough days a little bit easier. Because we all have them. In ministry, you have them. At One Life, you have them. In your job, at home, we always have them. But when you can fix your eyes on something bigger than you, guess what? You can push those things a lot easier. Imagine being there. One of the biggest things for me in sports was, what would it be like when the clock says 0-0 if we won the game? And because I would imagine what that win would be like, I would imagine what it would be like to finish a game, finish the season strong, those were the things that would push me when things got tough. Allow your imagination to be focused in such a way that on days that are tough, you remind yourself of why you do it. And not only why you do it, but who you do it for. Because if you do that, I can promise you, even on the hard days, there's going to be some intrinsic and extrinsic motivation for you. And we all need it, even me. Never give up. The cliched saying, right? Never give up. It's simple, though. That you know where you're going and you choose not to give up in what it is that you do. That you would say, you know what, I fell down, but I got back up. And the last 3 is ignite others. As a leader, one of my favorite, as a man, not even as a leader, as a man, one of my passions is igniting others. Hey, what are you good at? Find out what people enjoy, and I want to give life to that. I want to ignite, I want to encourage others in their God-given abilities to be who God's called them to be. Because guess what? If I do that, if I encourage Scotty to be who God's called him to be, he's going to be greater, but guess what? So will I. And if all of us looked out for the people beside us, not only would we individually increase, But collectively, as an organization, as a group, as a company, by default, by design, everybody else begins to do well. And the last two, and finish, is surrender yourself. You know, I love sports. I love getting to speak, and the Lord's opened up a lot of doors. But the biggest thing that's ever happened in my life is when I surrender myself to the Lord. I was in St. Louis, thought I was going to be a GM, be a general manager, be a millionaire. That was the initial goal. Didn't grow up with a lot. I said, you know what, I'm just going to set out for making a lot of money and being successful. And then I came to a place in my life where I was like, Lord, what would you have of me? And lo and behold, he brought me back to start with FCA. Now he's leading us into full-time ministry. But it's because I just surrendered myself. I said, Lord, I don't know what you want for me, but you're in control. You see the end before I do. And because of that, I trust wherever you lead me. But I won't surrender myself unless I know that he loves me and cares for me, and neither will you. And the last one is hold nothing back. I want to read a quote that I think is so relevant to anything that we do. It's by Erna Bombeck. It says, when I stand before God at the end of my life, I would hope that I would not have a single bit of talent left and could say, I used everything you gave me. Whether you work for this company, whether you're in ministry, whether you're a man or a woman, that at the end of life that the Lord will say, Tyson, well done, my good and faithful servant. And although I messed up and continue to mess up, when I mess up, I get back focused. My eyes are fixed on Jesus. What he's done, the author and finisher of my faith, the one who loved me, the King of kings. And when I fall, which I did yesterday and which I'll do today, I get back up focused. At the end of my life, I can look back and say, Lord, I gave it everything I had. The results, they'll take care of themselves. But I gave it everything I had, and whatever results come, I trust you to provide for me, and whatever that looks like. And so as I close today, I pray that you just think about those three things in your life. And this is one of the things I know about speaking to an audience. I don't know what your morning was like this morning. Don't know what your night was like last night, and don't know what your week has been like, but he knows. And because he knows, there might have been a word, a phrase, an illustration, something that was said that you're going to hold on to more than another. And I hope and pray that the Lord would use that simple statement from just a man who makes a lot of mistakes, but it's just a vessel. They would use that to encourage you, to challenge you in ways that maybe you haven't been in a while. But more than anything, that what was said would encourage you and challenge you to live a life that brings glory to him in everything that you do. I'll close in prayer. I'll turn it back over to Scotty. And as always, thank you so much for letting me be part of it, man. I appreciate it. Y'all bow your head. Father in heaven, we love you. Thank you for Scotty and his team, and for One Life, and for all those that are here. Thank you for the men and women in this room. Lord, so many times I feel inadequate, but Lord, you just give me opportunities, and all I can do is say thank you. And I pray that what was said today, Lord, that it would be used for your glory. I pray that it would be used for this company, that it would do well. I pray for each individual that was here, Lord, for their families, for their lives, or wherever they feel as though they need to get focused, Lord, that you would give them focus, that they would fight for things that matter, more than anything, that they would finish. Thank you for this time. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Thank you all.